So after the first quarter is when we could conceivably begin, sending out records.
Okay, but we can get our stuff in prior to, or does it all have to go
The
in
earlier
together
the
at the
better.
same time? Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
I had a couple of things to address, and one of them was about how to access learning support at the high school level. So if your child has been in Boost at Orchard and has managed successfully with that kind of support, you may want to look into learning support in high school. Each high school offers their form of learning support. And again, as you match schools to your children, if you have a child that has some learning needs, some of the learning support programs fit certain students better than others. So it's important when you do your high school visits, open houses and so on in 7th grade, that you kind of get a feel for what learning support might offer your child. So when you apply for high school, you also need to apply for the Learning Support Center. And often there is a separate fee for that. It's not included. So that would be important to remember. Now, most of the kids don't need learning support in high school. Some of them benefit from having it the first year, maybe the second year, and then they're develop the executive skills and they can manage on their own and they continue through. Some kids need learning support all the way through high school, and they also benefit from the learning support centers at a college campus. So you need to know your own student and what their particular needs are. But the main thing is, if you're thinking about learning support, make sure you visit, talk to the learning support people, decide which is a good place for your child. You need to forward any testing that you've had either done at Orchard or privately or by public school to the school when you apply for the Learning Center, because they will look at that, and it needs to be a recommendation in a report. So a doctor's letter saying that a child has a certain kind of syndrome or anxiety usually is not sufficient. At one time it was. Now you actually need a diagnosis and a report with recommendations that suggest learning support or extended time or some of those other things. Most high schools will accept testing within the past 3 years. Rebuff has sort of drawn a line in the sand, and they want it within the last 2 years. So we typically encourage parents to have their kids reassessed sort of later in 7th grade, early in 8th grade, because then that helps them when they're in high school. They may be able to apply for extended time or whatever they might need for ACTs or SAT tests if their data is up to date. So the later you can manage to do it probably is better for your student. In terms of high school placement preparation, everybody gets worried about the tests. There's the HSPT, which is the high school placement test that all the Catholic schools require. So whether you're applying at Garrett or Chittard, they all use the same test. University High School requires the ISEE. So if you're applying there, you have to take that test. Park will accept the ISEE or they'll accept the ERB scores, which your students will have at the beginning of 8th grade. So and there isn't any range that they publish that's acceptable, but I think if you look at your child's ERB scores and they're within the average range on the independent norms, you would have no problem at all. So those are usually stay 9s and 4, 5, or 6. Probably doesn't mean a whole lot to you right now unless you're looking at that information, but typically if they've done reasonably well on the ERBs and you're just applying to Park and not university, I would say don't worry about taking the ISEE. Now, if you are considering a Catholic high school, you can take the test at any school. So for example, if Chittard was your first choice, you really wanted to go there, you might decide to take the test at Cathedral or Rebuff or Garrett or somewhere else for the first time. Have those results sent to your home. When you apply to take the high school placement test, you can have the test sent to the schools that you're applying to, or you can have them sent to you. And when you get them, you can decide if you want to share that or not. And we've had kiddos here, for whatever reason, just do not test well in standardized test situations. So some schools will take, most schools will take your best, say in the language portion, your best in your math and combine that if you happen to have a problem with your test scores. So conceivably, if you take it in one school, you decide you don't like the results, you can do some practice. And there are books for the high school placement test. There's also books for the ISEE practice. And sometimes it's just a matter of having kids slow down, read the questions carefully, really look at what they're asking for. And a little bit of practice can go a long way. There's a summer camp at Orchard where they look at the reading part and the math part of the 2 tests, give the kids opportunities to practice taking the tests in a place that they're comfortable. So that's offered in June here at Orchard. There are several middle school teachers that will do individual tutoring with your child. So say they really have a problem in one area of the testing, in the reading part, they're great in that. You might get one of the language arts teachers to work with them. And Tommy has a list of people who do some of that tutoring that you could check with that if you were interested in it. Cathedral High School offers a camp, I think it's a 3-day camp, where the students take the test, then they have 3 days of kind of coaching on the areas that they didn't do particularly well on, and then they retake the test. Brebeuf is offering opportunities in the summer. I think after you take camp at Orchard, the next Saturday, the immediate Saturday, you can take the test at Brebeuf. So Brebeuf will, if you have, if your child scores at the 80th percentile, they'll offer admission right then and there. If they don't, then you've got time to look at some areas that they could benefit from help. And there are agencies around, like Bender RoCap will do high school placement testing, tutoring, and so on. So that you've got some options. But typically, most of our kids do reasonably well on this. And in fact, going through some of these test questions ahead of time and trying to just practice them at home with a little supervision on the timing gives them a sense of what that test will feel like. And if you're sort of worried about have them take the test at a school they're not as interested in, and then, you have many opportunities in the fall to take the test, and then you can do it, the school you really want for the last time, or you can do it at any school and send it to the school that you want. So you've got many options with that. But I think the biggest thing is not to get too stressed out about this test, because the main thing schools are looking at is not their test on the HSPT or the ISEE or ERBs. They're really looking at your grade reports for kids that are doing their homework, preparing for tests, showing some determination, persistence, responsibility, creativity. So it's really more about what they're doing day to day than anything that they do on a standardized test. Most of our kids will be fine.
Can I just clarify a question on that then?
Sure.
So Brebeuf, if you take the test following the class,
The camp.
and you don't do well, but you took it at Brebeuf, can you still just have that sent out? How many chances? How many
I don't
shots
think
will you get?
you can take it 5 or 6 times.
Okay.
In fact, I know one kiddo that took it 4 times, and then in the end, they combined the scores.
Okay.
And they got it in. But really, and the critical piece there was this was a kid who really worked hard. He did absolutely fine at the Bob, went on to do absolutely fine in college, is graduating now. But his parents were in such a panic because he hadn't done well on this high school placement test. And in the end, he got the right combination and he got in. But yes.
So if you take the test more than once, they average them?
No, they don't. They take the best score. Most schools will take your best score.
Of individual parts of the whole thing.
I'm sorry.
Of individual parts.
If it's necessary, that your child is really, because what happens with teenagers, they take this test, on one time they do really well on the reading comprehension piece, and they bomb the math. Then they might take the test the next time and they do really well on the math, and they bomb the reading comprehension. You think, what does this mean? But sometimes it's just what they do on a given day, and they're better able to think with one part of their brain than the other. So schools know that about adolescents, and so they really try to work with families to make sure that it balances out. Yes.
June, 2 questions.
The transcripts, is it just the grades or is it the verbiage with it?
I think it's the verbiage with it.
No, it's just, the transcript is just the grade.
It's just the
There is-
grade.
Correct.
Just grade. Okay, so second question, more central, is there, out of district, is there a test you take for that?
No, I don't believe that there is for North Central. It's a public school. There's a separate application if you don't live within their boundaries. But I don't think there is no admissions test. Now, Tommy, is the grade and the effort, is that correct? Yes. So that effort score, I mean, most kids at Orchard get a 2 for effort if they do their homework and turn it in. So if you've got less than that, if you've got somebody that's ends up in 3 or 4, that's probably more concerning than their high school placement test scores.
Can you just talk about, like, if you are qualifying for AP classes or something, and, once you get into high school, how that works a little bit too?
Well, I'm probably not the best person to speak about that, and I'm wondering if you want to let everybody else have a chance, and then ask me some questions after. As far as I know about classes like that, if you test, subject tests at the school that you're applying to.
Right, before you start.
Yes, so if you want AP English, you do that at Gravois or at University or wherever you're applying.
Janice, we're both still doing that testing in May for 7th graders?
I believe they are, yes.
May 11th, I would highly recommend that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.